Okay, let's get started. First of all, I want to remind everyone of the AI quiz. You have to finish and pass the quiz by this Sunday. If you have submitted but get a -1, which means you do not pass, then you need to resubmit. So this is serious. If you do not get past this Sunday, you get an automatic F, so you can drop the class next week. Okay, so this is serious. This is a big class, so there are a lot of students, almost 100. So I'm taking this very seriously. If someone cheat in the homework, you at least get a 0 in that homework, and also it will be reported to the dean's office. I believe if you cheat twice in homework or exam, the dean's office will give you automatically F for the course, and it will show on your transcript. Okay. So today we keep talking about symmetric key crypto. Also, we talk about hash functions and digital integrity. So far, we know that the symmetric key crypto algorithms, they are quite secure. They're not easy to defeat. So the best way to attack a symmetric crypto system is just a brute force. So you can brute force any other algorithm as well. So that's not really considered as the design flaw of the algorithm itself. So symmetric key crypto offers very good confidentiality, and also it's relatively fast. Every one of you are using it many times every day. It's very fast. Usually, a symmetric crypto algorithm consists of many rounds of substitutions and transpositions. And now we even have direct hardware support for those algorithms. Your laptop, even your phone, either it's Intel-based CPU or ARM-based CPU, they have special instructions for those crypto algorithms, especially AES. But the symmetric key crypto, there is a very big but there. It had a disadvantage. The disadvantage there is the two communicating parties. They have to have a shared secret key. So how do you share that secret key? That's a big question. So let's assume we have two communicating parties, A and B. You may want to communicate with your friends, or your laptop, your browser wants to communicate with a remote web server. They want to use symmetric crypto to encrypt the message. So right now, some of you are checking your Gmail, right? You're checking your Microsoft Office, what's that called? Outlook, whatever. So there are many other people in the same room using the same Wi-Fi. They will see the wireless message sent between the server and your web browser. How do you make sure your message is not eavesdropped by everyone else in this room? So that is done by encryption. The browser encrypts the message between your browser and the remote server. But how does the browser and the server share the key? Okay. So one idea to do this is the two communication parties, they will share that secret key in advance. So before they communicate, there is a secure offline channel. They share the key. This actually happens for banks. When you used to go to banks, they give you a dongle. That dongle is a secret between you and the bank. But I think most banks are not doing that anymore. So in this way, one of the communicating parties will randomly generate a key or select a key, then physically give the key to the other party. So when I say physically, we mean they have a secure communication channel physically, so it will not be eavesdropped by anyone else. However, when you visit a new website, obviously there is no physical communication channel, secure one for you to exchange a secure key, right? So we don't have that one. So another approach is to have a trusted third party. Usually we call them the key distribution center. So the trusted secure party will generate keys for the two communicating parties and use some channels, secure channels, to deliver the keys. The problem here is we bring in another party, and that party has to be trusted. If that party is not trusted, or if that party is not trustworthy, then everything, our communication, it's not really secure. So those are not very practical solutions. So back in the 70s, two researchers, Diffie and Hellman, I believe that time Hellman was a professor at Stanford. Diffie was maybe an independent researcher. I don't remember what was his title at that time. Anyway, they was thinking we need some new crypto system. In the new crypto system, we do not need a secure communication channel in advance to share the keys. So their idea is to have something called a public key crypto system. They didn't really invent a public key crypto system. They envisioned something like this may exist. So they published a paper called New Directions in Cryptography in IEEE Transactions on Information Theory. Okay, so here the keyword is information theory. We mentioned this a week ago when we said that Shannon is actually the father of information theory. So this academic journal still exists. It's a very important journal. So in this paper, they envisioned a public key crypto system, but they couldn't design one. But they come up with something now we call Diffie-Hellman key agreement protocol. It's not really a full public key crypto system, which we will talk about next week, but it's a key agreement protocol that can establish a shared key or shared secret over an unsecured communication channel. So those two parties, they want to communicate with each other. They want to encrypt their message. Before they encrypt the message, they negotiate a secret key. The secret key was not directly transmitted between them. They negotiated that one. Anyone in the middle just eavesdrop, a passive attacker just eavesdrop the communication, will not be able to figure out the key. But we will talk about this protocol also have its own vulnerabilities. So the point here is both parties, they need to agree on a key, but that key was not directly transmitted. Then later, that key will be used in the symmetric encryption to encrypt all the messages between them. So this is called the Diffie-Hellman key agreement protocol or Diffie-Hellman key exchange protocol. This protocol is widely used today. Every one of you are using that. It's not the very basic version of it. You are using a version of Diffie-Hellman combined with authentication. Anyway, so here I have a picture of those two gentlemen back in the 70s, and also both of them received a Turing Award in 2015 because of the contribution of Diffie-Hellman protocol and also envisioned the new public key crypto system. An interesting fact is the very first public key crypto system, or the one we know, NSA claims they know this better earlier, but the one we know, the one we still use is called RSA. So RSA was inspired by their original paper published in the Journal of Information Theory. Then 3 three graduate students in MIT, they invented an algorithm, the first public key algorithm, RSA, and they got their Turing Award back in 2002, okay? So almost 13 years earlier than Diffie and Hellman get their Turing Award. So the DH key agreement protocol is widely used in all kinds of protocols now. TLS is the one we use every day. As long as you surf the internet, you are using TLS. In our network security class, in the second half of the semester, where we'll talk about TLS. TLS use Diffie-Hellman, the authenticated version of Diffie-Hellman, and also at other layers like IPsec. It's a different layer of protection of network traffic. They also use Diffie-Hellman. So let's take a look how the Diffie-Hellman protocol or algorithm works. It's actually very simple. So this slide summarizes all the operations you need to do. Just this simple. So we have two communicating parties, Alice and Bob. They do not have a secure communication channel at the beginning. Their goal is to establish a secure communication channel. What that means is they want to share a secret key and use that secret key to encrypt all of their communication. So first, they need to agree on a prime number, let's call it P, and a base number, let's call it G. The P and G, those two numbers, they do not have to be a secret. They are not secret, they are public. Attackers know that. Alice and Bob, they also know that. Then at the same time, Alice and Bob, they will perform step 2 and step 3 at the same time. First, Alice will choose a secret number. Let's call it A. This is a secret. Alice is not going to share that secret number with anyone, even Bob. So attackers do not see that on the network. So Alice will compute a number, which is G to the power of A, then do a modular operation of P. So modular operation is basically you divide a number by P, then get the remainder, okay? So those, in practice, those are huge numbers. They're very big numbers. Could be hundreds of digits, like binary digit. Then Bob does the same thing. Bob will choose a secret number B. For Alice and Bob, A and B are just random numbers. Big random numbers, but they are secret, they don't share. Then Bob will calculate the same thing, G to the power of B multiplied by P. Then Alice will send the number she calculates to Bob, and Bob will send the number he calculated to Alice. When Alice gets the number from Bob, what Alice gets is one number, but the number is actually G to the power of B mod P. After that, Alice will use that number, then calculate to the power of A, then mod P again. Bob will do the same thing. And mathematically, those two numbers, those two formulas, they equal to each other. They get to the same number, okay? So that number, both Alice or Bob will use them as the key. So P is public, G is public, A and B are secret. G to the power of A mod P, that's public. G to the power of B mod P, that is also public. So attacker knows those four numbers, but the attacker in the middle will not be able to compute this number, the shared key. Those are just two different forms of this number, okay? So let's see a running example to give you a sense how simple this is. So Alice and Bob, they agree on a prime number, let's say 23, and a base G, not secret. So Alice chooses a random number 6, and send 5 to the power of 6 mod 23. This actually will be number 8. So Alice will send 8 to Bob. Bob does the same thing, generate a random number, compute that, and get a reminder, which is 19. Bob will send 19 to Alice. Alice will send 8 to Bob. Then Alice get 19. It will compute. Alice will compute 19 to the power of 6 mod 23 and gets the number 2. Bob will do the same thing, also get the number 2. The number 2 is the shared secret. So obviously, in reality, those numbers are going to be very big numbers, very difficult to guess. If you just want to do brute force, it will take a long time to guess. So why is this secure anyway? So mathematically, why is this secure? First of all, like I said, brute force attack is difficult here because we are choosing very big numbers. So P is a prime, maybe 300 digits long, binary-wise. Then A and B are also hundreds of digits each. And discovering the shared secret, just using those publicly known numbers, you have to do brute force, and it will take longer than the lifetime of a universe, technically, using the known algorithms. This is because mathematically, this is a discrete logarithm problem, which is very difficult to solve. We don't have a polynomial time algorithm at this moment. However, this Diffie-Hellman algorithm protocol is not perfect. It is vulnerable to something called man-in-the-middle attack. So man-in-the-middle attack is a type of attack that is widely used in all kinds of network security. Basically, we insert the attacker in the middle of the two communicating parties. The man in the middle does not only passively eavesdrop the messages between them, but also actively change the messages. Yeah, the question? Well, if you agree on the numbers, I mean, well, that part is not difficult anyway. I mean, the key can be fixed. The short answer is the key can be fixed length. Let's say we have a range of those numbers. So obviously those calculations, the results also have a range. So the key will have a maximum length, right? So, well, in other way, let's say here I choose a very small prime, which is 23. So 23 in bits, it's like 9 bits, right? Because 5 bits, right? So 16 is 4 bits, 32 is 5 bits. So in this case, we should know that the key is, we can represent any key in 5 bits. So the key here is 5 bits. Yeah. So in the man-in-the-middle attack, the attacker doesn't only passively eavesdrop the message. If the attacker just eavesdrops the message, then that's just a regular attacker. We don't call it a man-in-the-middle. So in the man-in-the-middle attack, the attacker will impersonate both communicating parties. And we allow the attacker to intercept a message, which means Alice sends Bob a message, but the message is intercepted by man in the middle. So Bob doesn't really get that message. Alice believes she sends that message to Bob. Actually, Alice sends that message to man in the middle. So that's intercept. Then the attacker can also send the message. So after the attacker got the message from Alice, the attacker does some calculation, then send the message again to Bob. And Bob may think, oh, this is Alice talking to me. So Diffie-Hellman is vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attack. Then later we will say why it is vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attack. However, man-in-the-middle attack is a very popular type of attack in network security. The problem to the solution for that is to add authentication to the message. And the original DH, we don't have authentication. For example, Alice sent Bob the number 6. No, not number 6. Alice sent Bob the number 8. How does Bob know that number 8 is from Alice, not from someone else? But we don't have a mechanism to prove the authenticity of that message. So that's why in real world, we do not really use Diffie-Hellman key exchange alone. We will combine Diffie-Hellman with some authentication to defeat the man-in-the-middle attack. Especially we use some authentication, like use digital certificate and the public key algorithm combined with RSA. We will talk about those things, certificates, RSA, next week. So first, let's look at how the attack works. This slide shows the original protocol. We have Alice and Bob. Alice and Bob, they first agree on P and G and over unsecure channel. So attackers also know that. So Alice will generate a number. Let's call it, the generator number, let's call it A, same as before, that's a secret. Then we'll calculate X based on the formula, then send X to Bob. Bob do the same thing, send Y to Alice. Then Alice and Bob do the similar computation there and eventually generate the key. So they use the key as a secret for the following symmetric encryption. So how does the attack work? Let's say we have attacker, Eve. Eve can intercept the messages between Alice and Bob. And Eve can send the messages to Alice and also Bob. The idea here is very simple. Eve is going to establish a secure communication channel with Alice and also independently create another secure channel with Bob. And Alice have a secure communication channel with Eve, but Alice believes the secure communication channel she has is with Bob. She doesn't know about Eve. Bob also facing the same challenge here. Bob has a secure communication channel, but Bob believes that secure communication channel is between him and Alice, but in fact is between him and Eve. So basically, we are running that Diffie-Hellman protocol twice. Once between Alice and Eve, the second time between Alice and Bob. So when Alice talk to Eve, Alice believes he's talking to Bob. Then Eve will be able to decrypt that message. Then Eve may resend that message to Bob using another secure communication channel. So let's take a look how it works. So Alice still generates a random number A and send the X to Eve. Same as before, G and P are public. X are also public. Eve will hijack this message, will intercept the message. So Eve never resend X to Bob in this case. Then Eve will generate its own random number C and calculate, let's call E1 number, send that E1 number to Bob. Bob doesn't know that E1 is from Eve. Bob believes that E1 is from Alice. So Bob will generate another number B and compute the secret between Eve and Bob. Then Eve also will generate another number E2 and send E2 to Alice. then Alice will compute K2, the key 2, K2 here, which is key. So after those two independent Diffie-Hellman negotiation, Alice and Eve share K2 as a secret key. Eve and Bob share K1 as a secret key. However, Alice and Bob doesn't know that there is a man in the middle. Okay, so this attack, in theory, is very simple. In practice, it's also very practical because there are so many network entities between you and whoever you want to talk to. So you have a laptop in this room. Your laptop connects to a Wi-Fi hotspot somewhere in this room. That Wi-Fi hotspot connects to a switch in the university. That switch in the university connected to some ISP. The ISP were connected to maybe another ISP eventually connect to the other end of whoever you want to talk to. There are many entities in the middle. Okay, so if you don't have any authentication of that, then any entity in the middle can impersonate you and whoever you want to talk to. So this is a very practical attack. So to solve this problem, the protocols we are using today is we're adding authentication to those messages. So basically, when Alice generates A and compute X and send X to Bob, Alice will have a digital signature saying, I generated X. I am sending X. So Eve cannot forge that signature. So Eve has no choice but to forward that message to Bob. Then Bob will verify this message is actually from Alice, not from anyone in between. So that is a basic idea. Okay, so that's all about the Diffie-Hellman algorithm. We will actually talk more about the key management, including the public key management, the public key infrastructure, after we talk about the public key system. So next, we will talk about two other applications. One is data integrity and hash functions. So they are also widely used. So far, we have been talking about symmetric key encryption. So the purpose of symmetric key encryption so far is to provide confidentiality of your data or message. We're not talking about integrity. So confidentiality, we are facing some passive attackers. The attacker's goal is try to eavesdrop our message. But what if the attacker's goal is different? The attacker want to tamper our message, want to change the message we are sending. They are actually violating the integrity of the message. So today we talk about two approaches and also the combination of two approaches to maintain the integrity of those messages. The one is called Message Authentication Code, MAC. So this approach sometimes is combined with symmetric encryption itself, and also another mathematical primitive called hash functions. So all the crypto algorithms usually will assume the attackers, they have limited resources. They cannot easily brute force the whole key space. If they can, then everything is breakable anyway. So encryption only protects data from passive attacks, and data integrity is to trying to prove the data was not changed by anyone else. And also, sometimes we add authentication. The message authentication also guarantees that the message is not only changed by anyone in the middle, also guarantees that the message is authentic. It is really from its alleged source. So actually there are two goals. One is authenticity. guarantees the message is from its alleged source, and also the message has not been changed. So one of the crypto primitive we use is called MAC, Message Authentication Code. Its goal is to authenticate the message and also guarantee the integrity of the message. So it doesn't try to guarantee the confidentiality of the message. If you want to guarantee the confidentiality, you go for the encryption itself. So usually we use those things together. We encrypt the message. We also use MAC to guarantee the integrity and the authenticity. So in most MAC algorithms, what we do is we require the two communication parties to have a secret key. So this secret key could be different from the key you use for encryption. But because this is a secret key, which means this secret key has to be shared or negotiated using DH algorithm between the two communicating parties. So the message we are generating, we just call it a message authentication code. This code should not be able to easily compute it or even verified without the key. So only those two communicating parties, they can generate a legit MAC. So the MAC here is different from the concept in network. So this is not about MAC address. That one is media access control address, MAC address. So that's a layer of the network. So here the MAC is just a message authentication code. So what we do with this protocol is the sender trying to, let's say Alice, want to send a message M to Bob. That's message M. So Alice, in addition to the original message M, Alice will compute a tag. This tag we can call it MAC, which is some kind of a MAC algorithm with a key and take the message as input. So this can be as simple as like a encryption. This could be an AES encryption. Then send the message to Bob. So in this case, let's say if this MAC algorithm here is just AES, then the message, let's say, is 120 bytes. After this MAC algorithm, the output, the tag, will also be 120 bytes. So Alice will send out the message itself and the tag. So both of them will be 240 bytes there. And in this case, Alice doesn't really care about the confidentiality of the message because the original message was not encrypted, right? So then after the receiver gets the message, the receiver will decrypt that tag. After decrypt the tag, it compares the tag with the plain text with the M. If they match, the recipient will know, oh, this message has not been changed. If the message has been changed, then they will not match. Either the tag part is changed or the original message is changed. But anyway, either of them is changed, they will not match, right? So obviously, a desired property of this tag is it should be a fixed length. We don't want that to be too long. It should not be as long as the message itself. So if you look at the MAC protocol algorithm, you can see it's very similar to the encryption itself. First step is we need a key. Then we need to generate a MAC. However, the difference here is the MAC usually has a fixed length. It's not the same length as the original message. But if you encrypt something, the length of that should be the same length of the original message. After that, we should also have a MAC verification algorithm. If you input the message itself, had the tag and the key, then you should be output a true or false if this message has been changed, or if this message is really from whoever it comes from. So the property of MAC algorithms, correctness and security. If a tag is correctly computed, then it should always verify. Security means it should be difficult to forge a tag on a new message without knowing the key. We want the tag to be fixed length, independent of the message length. Attacks on Mac, also you see those attacks are familiar because it's very similar to the attacks on the encryption itself. The first one is known text attack. So the attacker somehow collects one or more pairs of message and the tag. However, the attacker will not be, even though attacker collects many pairs of that, the attacker should not be able to generate new tags on new messages without knowing the key. Choosing text attack, in this case, the attacker can choose some messages, not only passively eavesdrop some messages, can choose some messages and get the corresponding tag. However, the attackers will not be able to forge the tag for arbitrary message. Also, adaptive chosen text attack. The attacker can choose some messages. Then, based on the output, the attacker can decide what new messages they want to choose in the future, and also generate corresponding tags. From the attacker's point of view, we can classify the forgery into two different cases. One, we call it selective forgery, which means the attacker is able to produce a new MAC pair for a message under the attacker's control. So this is a very strong attack. Basically, it means the attacker can generate any tag for any message. Then there's another one is existential forgery. The attacker is able to produce a new MAC pair, but with no control of the value of the message. So in the second attack model, the attacker's goal is in a much weaker form. So most algorithms, we are trying to provide the existential unforgeable under adaptive chosen message attack model. So most of the algorithms is designed with this in mind, not higher goals, because they are too difficult to achieve. So however, like I said, MAC can achieve two things. One is the integrity of the message. Another one is the authenticity of the message. So it cannot defeat all network attacks. Another network attack is just a replay attack. So Alice and Bob, they have a secure channel. The channel is encrypted and also use MAC to prove the messages sent between them. The integrity and authenticity are maintained. However, there is a passive and also active attacker can eavesdrop all the messages they sent. Then later, the attacker can resend the message he collected before. Maybe it's a message from Alice to Bob. The attacker collected the message, later resend that message. So after the message is resent, Bob received the message, Bob verifies the message was actually from Alice, was actually not changed by anyone. But it's actually from a different time, right? So that's a different attack that MAC itself cannot protect. So how do we defeat that attack? Yes, we can add a timestamp or a reference number, right? Sequence number. So in TCP, we use a sequence number for that. Yeah. So that's why in TCP, we have something called a sequence number or acknowledgement number. That's why we have that in the first place. So how do we actually implement MAC functions? There are two ways, popular ways. One is called the CBC MAC, basically using the symmetric encryption's CBC mode, which we talked on Monday, and to generate MAC. Another one is called HMAC, which we will talk next. It's based on the hash function. So CBC MAC is simple. So we use the CBC mode of the encryption. Remember that in CBC mode, we divide the message into smaller blocks. So here we divide the message into M1, M2, MT, smaller blocks. Then we have an IV. So in encryption, the IV is randomly generated. It's not really a secret, but randomly generated. In MAC, we just use 0. The first one we use 0, exclusive always M1. Then after that, we go to the AES encryption using the key. So after the encryption, the output is actually the ciphertext of the first block, right? So it should output here. We don't output that. We don't need that because the goal here is not get the ciphertext. The goal here is to generate a fixed length of MAC. So the output was exclusive OR with the second block. Then that output goes to the encryption. So you can see the message, no matter how many blocks there are, eventually here we only have the output is only one block. It's fixed size. Yeah, no matter how long your input is, the output is just one block. Then at the end, we are going to use a different key to decrypt that message, then use the key one to encrypt that message again. So this is a standard CBC MAC structure, is like this. So next, we talk about hash functions. They are also very, very useful tools. So hash function is basically just a compression algorithm. You can consider it a compression algorithm. That's why we usually call them the hash values or digest. No matter how long your input is, we are going to output a fixed length output. So we call it a digest. So because hash function works on anything, arbitrary long input. So the input space here is infinite. Then we have a hash function. Well, the MAC function we saw just now is the same. The input here is also infinite. The output is fixed. But the hash function has a different design inside. Then the output is a relatively small output space, but usually still big. Like in SHA-1, we have 160 bits. That's very big. MD5 was, how big was MD5? Because no one is using MD5 anymore. I don't remember how big is MD5. What? No, maybe bigger than that. But MD5 is 28 bits. 128 bits. Yeah, MD5 is 128. SHA-1 is 160, I believe. Yeah. So the property of hash function is this is a one-way function. It's impossible to compute the original message out from the hash value. This is very easy to understand because you are mapping something from a huge space to a much smaller space. So there's no way you can reverse that. You have a whole disk of 50 gigabyte of data. You compute a hash value which is 20 bytes of that 50 gigabytes. Obviously, there's no way you can get that 50 gigabyte back from that 20 bytes. That makes sense, right? Yeah. Well, the thing is here, also it will be, well, it's not possible to really reverse this one particular. It's not possible. Yeah. It's not, you cannot reverse. Let's say, what does reverse mean? Reverse means you have a MAC here, which is, let's say, 16 bytes. And from that MAC, you need to regenerate M1, M2 to MT. That's actually not possible here either. Yeah. But from attacker's point, but if you have the key 1, key 2, you will be able to regenerate that one. Let's say, we reverse this flow. This is an input. You have key 1, then you get a result here. You have key 2, you get a result. So you will be able to regenerate M1 to MT, all of them, right? Yeah, you will be able to. Okay. But without the keys, it's not possible. At least that's a goal. Without key, it's not possible. Yeah. But a hash function here is, even if you have all the information, it should not be possible. Okay. In hash function itself, we do not really have a key. Okay. So because the hash function's goal is to map data in very huge infinite space to a much smaller space, inevitably, we're going to map many data points here to the same point here. This is pigeonhole principle in combinational, what is that called? Yeah, anyway, some math, right? So so collision is inevitable. It's just even the output space is very big. So we want the collision to be difficult to find. Okay. So mathematically, hash function is a efficient function that maps an input x of arbitrary length to a fixed length output hx. We use hash functions in many different things, not necessarily for security. Okay, for example, hash table. If you study in algorithm design, you use hash table. So that is also a hash function. But the hash table function, the function used in hash table is not necessarily a crypto hash function. So in this course, we talk about crypto hash function. So later I will show you a regular hash function. Then we talk about crypto hash function. In crypto hash function, it should be computational hard to invert this one. The invert here doesn't mean get back to X, more like finding a collision, something like that. We use hash functions for password hashing in digital signature and in other things. So many of us, every one of us, we have so many passwords. We have so many accounts in different websites. So how it works is you log in a website, you type password, let's say text-based password, and the website will hash your password. The website is not supposed to store the plain text of a password. Why is that? If the website stores the plain text of password and the website is compromised, then everything is compromised. Your plain text password is compromised. So the best practice so far is the website will hash your password. Even if the website is compromised, only the hash value of your password is disclosed. Then it's still difficult for the attackers to log in, because when anyone, you or the attacker log in your account, they have to give the original password, not the hash. Okay. There are a lot of study on that as well. So for those crypto hash functions, there are 3 properties we want the hash functions to have. The first one is obviously the one-way property, or we call it a pre-image resistant property. So given a hash value, it's difficult to find the original message, okay? Or impossible to find the original message. The second one is a second pre-image resistant or a weak collision resistance. So given X, it's hard to find another X such that their hash values are the same. The third one is collision resistance. It's difficult to find any two pairs and they have the same hash value. Doesn't need to given one of that. Okay. So those are the basic properties of a hash function. Also, people define that how should quantify the properties as well. For example, a brute force attack should be it should be difficult to find a pre-image or second pre-image. The difficulty is quantified as you need 2 to the power of n that trials to really find that. So a lot of crypto analysis were actually trying to find the vulnerabilities of a hash function. So it will be easier to find a collision. That's why we're not using MD5 anymore, because we find MD5 is vulnerable to many attacks. It's not as secure as it was originally thought. Okay, so like I said, I'm not a cryptographer, so I don't know how to design good hash functions. So, but I can give you a bad hash function here. So this can be a hash function we use in our hash tables. So it's still useful, but it's not used for crypto. It's not a crypto hash function. The hash function here I'm giving you is very simple. The input is any number, arbitrary long, could be hundreds of digits, any integer. The hash function itself is just the input modular number 8. So any integer modular number 8, the output will just be 0 to 7, right? So the output will be just be 3 bits. So no matter how long your input is, the output is 3 bits. So this is a valid hash function. But let's say if it's secure. Let's say if given any hash value h, it's computationally difficult or infeasible to find an n that can generate the same hash function. Obviously, no, right? Let's say we have a value 7 here. The hash value, let's say the hash value is 7. Then we know that the original input can be 7 plus 8, 7 plus 16, right? All of them will generate the same hash value 7. So this hash function doesn't have the property of pre-image resistant. It's not a secure one. The second one is given a message M, is it computationally infeasible to find another message so they have the same hash value? Let's say given value 57, we can quickly, then we can know 57 minus 8 or minus 16 or plus 8 plus 16, they will have the same hash value. Very easy, right? It's not cryptally secure. Also, we know that any two numbers that as long as the distance is 8 or 16, 24, they will have the same hash value. So it's not a secure hash function. So in the past decades, there have been many attempts in designing good crypto hash functions. Notable ones are those, MD5, but almost 15 years ago, we started stopping using MD5 because we find out it's not that secure. SHA-1, SHA-2, SHA-3, from the name you can see, it's kind of like AES. So NIST, they have solicitation, say, hey, we want you to design a new hash function, and we will call this hash function SHA-1. And many people send proposals there. Then eventually they choose an algorithm, and that algorithm chose SHA-1. Then they find out SHA-1 was not secure. Then they have another solicitation for SHA-2, SHA-3, something like that. So So before MD5, MD5 actually was designed by the same people who invented RSA. Maybe not all of them. RSA has 3 people, R, S, and A. MD5 was probably just designed by R. So R is a professor in MIT. So before MD5, there were other versions of it, MD2, MD4. MD here basically means message digest. So they all have a 128-bit output. They were standardized and used in our internet for a long time. I remember when I started, the first time I started using Linux, so the Linux has a password file. We used to call it the shadow file, .shadow, I believe. In that file, used to have the MD5 hash value of your password. And everyone in your system can access that. So previously, because 20 years ago, people just think MD5 is secure. I can put the hash value here. Anyone can have it. We don't need to keep it in confidence. Then later find out MD5 is not that secure, and right now that file is not available for everyone to read. And also Linux is not using MD5 anymore. So let's say back in 2004, almost 20 years ago, many collisions were found in MD5, and the trial you need to try, well, technically it's 128 bits, right? So technically, if the algorithm is perfect, then you need 2 to the power of 108 trials to find a collision. Worst case, you need that trial to find one collision. And maybe you cannot find one. Maybe for that particular hash value, there is no collision. That's also possible. However, a lot of research find out the average trial we need is only just 2 to the power of 20 or something. So that's just how many? Maybe 1 million trials. In modern computer, that will be very fast. So that's why we're not using MD5. SHA was started back in the 90s. We're still using SHA here. Let's say how secure is right now. So in 2004, collision was 2 to the power of 40. That's still a big number, but the SHA is 160 bits. So now we're using SHA 256, I believe, or SHA-3. Yeah, so SHA-3 is actually called a Kirk-Calf. This one is pretty new. SHA-3 is pretty new, only less than 10 years old. So I believe this is the one we're using, and also SHA-3 supports different key lengths. Different digest lengths. There's no key here. Just a different digest lengths. It could be as long as 512 bits. So how do we use all those hash functions? Let's say we have a file. We want to check that file if it's changed. We can use Mac to do that, but if we use hash function, it will be even faster. So we have the original file. We calculate a hash of the original file. We attach that hash value to that file. Then that file can stay in the hard disk for someone else to retrieve, or for you later to retrieve, or send over a network for other people to get. Then when other people receive this message, the file, they compute a hash again, and compare that hash value with the hash value attached in the file. So if they match, means no one changed the file, the integrity of the file is maintained. Well, actually, that's a wrong statement, because we know there are collisions for hash function. So technically, you can find another file which generates the same hash value, but cryptographically, mathematically, it should be very difficult. Yeah, go ahead. that's a different issue because you are changing to a different file, right? That combination can be protected by adding another layer of, let's say, this hash value here. So the core problem of what you described there is how do you trust that hash value itself, right? So you need to add another layer of protection to trust the hash value itself. For example, you can have a digital signature on the hash value. Yeah. But this can be used for many different scenarios. In some scenario, we're not really talking about a malicious attacker. We are just talking about detecting errors in transmission. So this is better than CRC, but the CRC is supposed to do some, what's CRC for? Yeah, so CRC is designed for the similar purpose, but it's not as good as a hash function. Yeah. So back to the message authentication code, we can use the CBC mode of crypto, of symmetric crypto like AES to build a MAC. We can also use hash functions to build a MAC. A very simple way to build it is this, which we have a key. In MAC, we have a key. Then we just concatenate our key with the original message. Then we just hash it, right? So this is a very naive design. It is proof that this design is not secure. It can be easily forged. That's why now we have a standard using hash functions to build MAC, and that's called HMAC. So, and the HMAC have a very specific design, which is like this, and this is proved to be secure. So the H here can be any hash function. The proof is this HMAC function is as secure as the hash function itself. Okay, so you can use different hash function here. Let's say we use MD5 here. What we do is we have a key. The hash function doesn't have a key. The HMAC has a key. We use the key to perform an exclusive OR with some fixed number. This is just a fixed number. Then we get that number, concatenate that with the key exclusive OR with another fixed number. The result of that will concatenate with the key, another key, the message. Then the whole thing will go to the hash function, concatenated with this part of the previous part, then hash again. So we do the hash twice using a key and also using the message itself and two fixed padding constants here. So this algorithm is fast to compute, basically just two hash functions. And the message length is just the original message's length. That original message, this one is very long, but other parts can be short, right? So this part could be arbitrarily long, but this part is only hashed once. So it will not mathematically more complex than just the hashing itself. So that's basically how HMAC is designed. Obviously, like I said, I'm not a cryptographer. I cannot prove why this is as secure as the hash function itself. But the original paper proved that. Okay, so let's take one step back. We already learned we use encryption for confidentiality. We use MAC for integrity and authenticity. So how do we combine them together? There are many different ways to combine them together, but some of them are actually has its own vulnerabilities. For example, if we only care about the integrity and authenticity of this message, then we don't care about confidentiality. So when A send out the message to B, the message itself can be plain text. Then we calculate a MAC on this message. This is one idea to do that, very simple. Then if we do care about the confidentiality of the message, what we can do is we use one key to encrypt the message, use another key to generate a pack of this message. Okay? This works, but it's not perfect. For example, the first one, because we are, so the second one actually, because we use MAC and the MAC part basically is plain text. The message is in ciphertext now, but the MAC is plain text. So that MAC message may leak information of the original message. That's why it's not perfect. Then we can do authenticate, then encrypt, which we have the message, concatenate with the MAC of this message, then we encrypt the whole thing. Okay? So in this approach, actually, it's still vulnerable to chosen ciphertext attack. That's why the best practice so far is use encrypt, then authenticate approach. The last one, encrypt, then authenticate. So when you design a secure communication protocol, you should follow this approach. Encrypt, then authenticate. So first, you have the original message M. You encrypt the message with a key, get the ciphertext. Then you generate a MAC on the ciphertext. You do not generate the MAC on the plain text. You generate the MAC on the ciphertext using another key. Okay. So far, this is the best practice. This satisfies the definition of authenticated encryption and is also chosen ciphertext attack secure. Okay. And also there are some other approaches to combine those. One of them a lot of people use and the libraries provide to you is this one. How do I pronounce this? What? Genoise counter mode, GCM mode. So the libraries, for example, you use AES, the library will provide a GCM mode. So we talked about the counter mode this Monday. So a lot of libraries I used in AES, they do not provide a counter mode directly. They only provided the GCM mode. So GCM mode is actually better than counter mode. It also provides authentication there. So this Genoise is a mathematician, a French mathematician the set field theories, those things. He invented that. He passed away when he was like 21 or 20 something. But he basically a lot of crypto stuff we are doing is based on his math before he passed away 20 years ago. 20 years old, yeah. Okay, so far we covered symmetric key encryption, block cipher. We looked at two particular algorithms, DES and AES. We look at MAC and hash functions. Next, we're going to talk about public key crypto. So after that, then we can move to other system and network security and even a little bit usable security stuff. Because without those crypto background, we cannot build any secure system. We cannot build any system without those crypto tools. So for security guys, if you are interested in security, even if you don't have to be a cryptographer, but you need to know what cryptographic primitives to use when you need them. Any questions? Authenticate and encrypt. Okay. Chosen ciphertext attack. Yeah. Well, so first of all, what is chosen ciphertext? Knows the plain text and ciphertext, right? And they can choose. Not only know some existing pairs, they can also choose. Yeah. Well, you can imagine this part more like encrypting a message itself, because both inside that, both of them you can think them as a plain text, right? Since so this message itself is like a plain text to be encrypted, then it will be similar to just encrypt the message itself. Yeah, we can talk about this offline. I mean, I cannot give you the answer right away here. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the longer your digest is, obviously the possibility of collision decreases, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the algorithm itself will consider the length of the output, so the internal structure could be a little bit different. Yeah. For example, like generating a 128-bit is not as simple as I just generate 512, then just throw away the last 300 bits. Yeah, yeah. There will be more calculations than that. Yeah. Okay, our first homework will come out next week, and like I said, I will check, I will compare all of your homework with the ones I can find on internet, and also compare your homework with each other's. So you already took the AI quiz, so we take that very seriously in the class. So just don't cheat. Okay, cool. See you guys next week.